DeSantis, this poor guy. I mean,
he's stilted.
He's very stilted. He's probably at shin splints by now. I mean, God, what he's doing to is just his body. It's fascinating that he's even doing this debate, but
it's so diminishing. I mean, this has been in the works for months at this point.
Yeah.
Why did he agree to it when he was in second place in the Republican primary? It's pathetic. Newsom's not running for president.
No. And here is Ron DeSantis, who people thought in the Republican Party he was going to be the sort of the future of the Republican Party, which is going to be like the post-Trump candidate. And DeSantis thought, like, I'm going to be more Trump than Trump. And that means, like, I'm going to come out, I'm going to build off of, he thought that it was his COVID policies that were, attracting people. When in fact, what it was is like, dude, there's no income tax in Florida, which of course is decimating parts of your state government. But also, you're outdoors.
Yeah.
You have the ability to be outdoors more. And
then he ran on wokeness because mostly COVID policy, I just don't know how, like, actionable it is at the polls. The Republican base already pretended like COVID was over. Why they're going to vote for the guy who was more into being
it's
COVID
literally
over?
they are stuck
Yes.
it's as if their entire media diet and their assessment of the world is as if they're in a deep red congressional district.
Yeah.
And
COVID divides them more than it divides the Democrats.
Totally.
Yes.
And here is Gavin Newsom just sort of like reminding Ron DeSantis of his COVID past.
You passed an emergency declaration before the state of California did. You closed down your beaches, your bars, your restaurants.
False.
It's a fact.
You had
quarantines. You had quarantines. You had checkpoints all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this. Dead to right. You did that.
True.
You followed science. You followed Fauci, Ron.
That's not false.
He followed science. He followed Fauci. You were
why
promoting.
did everyone leave
hold on. You
California
were
to come to
promoting
Florida because
vaccines.
we were open.
You were promoting
We were
vaccines.
open.
You even
We were
wore a
closed.
mask in
We were
September,
open.
son.
You were closed.
If it's okay with you, we'll do this.
Why were you closed
Why don't we do
for
this
so
in a way
long?
where we both can have
Why were you closed for
opportunity?
so long?
You wore
You
a
were
mask
closed.
with Donald Trump
closed.
outside
I'm trying to let it breathe.
in September
Gavin,
2020. He did all of that
Newsom.
until he decided to fall prey to the fringe of his party. And as a consequence of that, Ron, tens of thousands of people lost their lives.
Not true.
The equivalent, if I had your policies, the equivalent of 10 9/11s. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives. And for what, Ron?
And for what? That's
It's
it.
not true. I followed the science.
Yeah. No, not true. Not true.
It's I'll just repeat what those guys on the Blaze TV said. The guy's a cuck. I don't know what else to tell you.
Newsom is a good debater. I mean, this moment and I thought the book burning one.
Let's do the book banning one too.
Ron looks despondent. Yeah, this one's sad. The entire time.
I mean, he's just got to. I mean,
He's one of the most miserable people I've ever seen in politics.
Yes,
honestly.
I mean, just like you could see, like I just keep reminding, like how he's this grinding smile.
It's like Nixon losing. I believe, like when he ran for governor after losing to JFK, he had the famous speech where it was like, "You're not going to have Nixon to kick around anymore. We're like a week away from
he
DeSantis
has
doing
that bitterness that Nixon had,
Well,
except just he's not that as smart, I guess.
He's so mad
Or
because
Machiavellian.
he's trying. He's probably in his mind like, who am I going to blame for this debacle?
Yes.
Like he should not have run this time around. There was no opening for him, and he thought there was. And he was high on his own supply, but he's desperately probably looking for somebody to blame. His wife is probably just beating him down because she was seemed to have been really driving part.
She's very
She's the one who
Lady
said you got to
Macbethian.
change the way you pronounce your last name.
Yes. Yes.
And like, I mean, like the level of like how much he has humiliated himself. He's on national television with like 4-inch lifts.
I know.
He's being mocked for it, and he's going to come out of this with absolutely no political career left.
And if you go back in a year of like on the record and off the record testimony from like campaign events, every single one is like someone saying Casey should have ran instead of Ron. Like she's the Machiavellian force behind him to begin with, supposedly, and also everyone likes her more.
So, all right, let's play this. He's so disgruntled.
You've been on a banning bench. 1,406 books have been banned just last year under Ron DeSantis' leadership. I love that he keeps pulling this out. I've seen this. He's been doing this all over the campaign trail. What's wrong with Toni Morrison's books?
It's not banned.
What's wrong? It's not true.
Not.
What's wrong with Amanda Gorman's?
It's not banned.
And the poetry. 1,406. 1,406 books have been banned on your banning bench in the state of Florida. As it relates to parental rights, come on. California, it's in our Constitution, parental engagement. It's called the LCFF process. We actually require parental engagement on curriculum development. And we don't. Complete lie. We don't require K through third grade sexual education. That doesn't happen until middle school. What you're doing is using education as a sword for your cultural purge. And you know what? With all due respect, you know, I remember in the 1970s,
Oh my God, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. You have to go back at the smiles. First of all, he's getting direction. The part of what's his problem is he's like one of the most desperately inauthentic politicians ever. Remember, he ran on wokeness, and then he just dropped it when it started polling poorly. But now he's being told to smile more on his stilts, which is quite painful.
It's like what you tell a baby also.
Yeah, right. And that pain smile there was just so beautiful. Okay.
Is using education as a sword for your cultural purge. And you know what? With all due respect, you know, I remember in the 1970s, we had a bill called the Briggs Initiative. And there was a guy by the name of Ronald Reagan, so offended by the Briggs Initiative, which was the original Don't Say Gay bill. In that case, it was not allowing teachers that happened to be gay to teach. And Reagan had the courage to stand up, and he said, you can't catch gay like you can measles. I don't like the way you demean people. I don't like the way you demean the LGBTQ community. I don't like the way you demean and humiliate people you disagree with, Ron. I really find this fundamentally offensive. And this is a core value that distinguishes the values of my state and, frankly, the vast majority of Americans against the weaponization of education and the purging that he's advanced.
I have a follow-up question.
He's going to complain about the amount of time. I mean, that's it.
I'd like to speak to the manager.
Now,
It's not true. Actually, they reinstated Bluest Eye. You can now get it. It was just a little bit that you couldn't get it.
What's really interesting about all this, like DeSantis arc, is like, where do they go now? Like they're trying to the reason why the Koch brothers are promoting Nikki Haley, even though like her policies are not terribly distinct from Donald Trump's in any fashion whatsoever, but like her presentation is better than, let's say, Ron DeSantis's, who, verb noun woke. I mean, it really wasn't even verb noun woke. And where do they go now?
You got to invest in something.
Yep.
Where do they go now? And that's, even Nikki Haley, like she doesn't have the ability to tack to the center as to where she wants to be. I mean, she's, to appeal to people. They're never going to get out of their primaries. Donald Trump, I wouldn't, if I was to bet against Donald Trump in the national election, I wouldn't put all of my money, I wouldn't deplete my kids' college fund. But Trump is a unique politician, regardless of party. He is a fascist. He appeals directly into a bunch of authoritarians who make up a significant portion of the Republican Party. But it is very hard to, and I think even like a above replacement level or a replacement level Democrat who was an incumbent would have no problem defeating Donald Trump.
That's part of what Newsom's trying to showcase. I mean, he's clearly running in 28.
Oh, yeah, of course. And but it's really hard to imagine how they're going to how they get themselves out of this situation, because they have an incentive structure that is just not going to let them get out of a primary with a candidate who can appeal to the majority of Americans.
Their strategy is Trump drops dead or goes to jail. That's all they can hope for.
Well, that's how they can get out of that's how somebody else can emerge in the primary. But it's hard to imagine like anybody's going to be able to sort of tack back to the center.
I hear you, but we have seen before the right-wing media apparatus they've done this before, laundering these quite conservative candidates to the mainstream. When you don't have the baggage of being Trump, it might be different for the suburban voters that they're coveting, I guess, in the future.